Now I think it's going to. It's working, I think. Yes. It went loud.
Yes.
Right, yeah, good. Do it while we can, before they break again. Morning again, Mr. Bennett. Now, we had lots of questions yesterday at the end of some site, which is a good thing. The questions yesterday were mostly focused around the core strategy, and in particular the meaning of the words in policy 36. So we've been over those in a fair amount of detail. One more thing maybe I want to check with you, but the most of it we've done. Changing tack then away from the language of policy 36 for a moment, I'd like to ask you about something else that you give evidence on to the inspector, and that's the topic of need. Need, I suppose, pipeline to meet need, that's something else that you talk about. Now, work through the logic of your case so that we understand how this fits what you're asking the inspector to actually do with all of this. Step one then, if the scheme accords with policy 36, you say it doesn't. So if it does, then we agree that the inspector doesn't have to get into considering the extent of any need or supply to meet needs so far as B2 or B8 goes, because it's an allocated side doing what it says on the tin.
Yes.
Right. That's if we accord. If we don't, then you give evidence on this topic in your proof of evidence. And just to be clear, again, sort of lay the table for what you do and don't do. You do talk about pipeline in your evidence, and you elaborate on that at the round table.
Yes.
Don't assess the topic of the requirement, the B8, so the sort of the requirement side of the equation. Requirement for strategic, non-strategic, B8 from that strategic B8, non-strategic B8, and the cumulative B8 requirement, that's not something you deal with.
No, it isn't.
Our B8 units range from broad brushstrokes, something like 2,500 square metres up to just over 7,500 square metres. That's the range within that spectrum. Mr. Ward's evidence yesterday was that there was a strong demand market, a need for all sorts of things, including B2, and also non-strategic B8 units of the sort proposed here.
Yes.
And so you don't dispute what he's saying. I don't know, you rely on what he's saying, you adopt it, do you?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what Mr. Ward said.
Okay. Now, your evidence, your proof, from page 10 or so, page 10 of 19, your proof, there's a heading called Need to Deliver Given Things, Class E, G, B2, and small scale B8, and provision elsewhere of large scale B8. Are you with me?
Yes. Yeah.
And you go through a number of tables, and you talk about strong delivery of B8, you talk at the bottom of page 11 about strong pipeline of G8, number of maps and things like that, and it goes on for a few pages until the end of until the beginning of page 14 when you move on to a different topic.
Yeah.
So just to understand what you're asking the inspector to do with all of that, talk about a strong pipeline. We've obviously looked at the round table as to how strong it may or may not be, and we've given evidence of all of that now, so moving on. I'd understood it was your case from all of this stuff that there's no need for delivery of more B8 at the scale proposed in this scheme, because those needs are being met elsewhere, i.e. that's what we're talking about.
Yes, that's it. And the pipeline is strong. The council's done well at delivering the B8,
Yeah.
and it continues to do so through this plan.
So let's just, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you, we're going to just have to break this down. So I do need to be, I want to really be clear about what it is that you're asking the inspector to find, okay? So the point of all this stuff between pages 10 and 14 is you were, at least at this stage, asking the inspector to each of you, there is no need for delivery of more B8 at the scale proposed in this scheme.
Yes, that's
When step one, you've adopted Mr. Ward's evidence that there is need for the B8 units proposed in this scheme.
yes. There is not at this site. There's scope within existing estates. The need is already met.
Okay, boy, I thought I'd understood what you were saying, but let's just take a step back. Mr. Ward, yesterday, you were here for it, I was. He confirmed that his view was there was both a need and demand for the units, the B8 units, all the units, but including the B8 units that were proposed as part of this scheme. Do you recall that?
Yes.
You agree and you endorse what he says. Okay. So we agree at that stage that there is a need for the B8 units that are proposed in this scheme, and so by bringing them forward, we'd be having to meet that need.
Yes.
Right. Then I'd take you to your actual evidence at pages 10 to 14. And the purpose of this evidence, that it doesn't sound like you're actually retracting, but I need to understand it, is that you're saying that there's not a need for these units to be brought forward at this scale on this site.
No, there is the need for these across the area. There's a need for all types of sizes of B8
That's not already been met.
that is capable of being met.
Oh boy, but no, you're going to have to try and answer my question. I'm sorry, I've been waiting to ask you this question all week because I'm desperate to know, genuinely anxious to know what your position is, because you never quite say in your proof of evidence, I raised it yesterday, I raised it in opening, you never quite say whether you accept there's a need or not, and I'm starting to
There is a need.
Right, okay, there's a need. There's a need that has not been met by the existing supply, and it's not been met by the pipeline either.
Yes.
Yes, what? Yes, there is a need that's not been met.
Yes.
There is a need for all this pipeline stuff that we've gone through yesterday. You do not say that pipeline has exhausted the need. There's still need.
Yeah.
So what's the point of looking at the pipeline?
Well, it's to demonstrate that that for this plan period that the need is being met.
No, but it's not. This is the point. It's either being met or it's not.
It is.
You just said, I mean, you keep changing. I don't know whether I'm losing my marbles, and it might well be me, so I just need to be clear. Are you saying that there is a need that for these units, these B8 units, that the B8 units will assist in meeting? Or are you saying that there is not such a need? Which one are you saying before we get into whether you're right or wrong?
I'm saying there's a need.
There is a need. Okay, so let's just try and bank that, so that I don't think I'm going to ask you about it. We agree that there is a need for each of the 6 units on offer, the B2 one and the 5 B8 units, notwithstanding all your stuff about the pipeline. So whatever the inspector makes of all of that, and he's heard the evidence of all that, there's a need.
Yes.
There's a need that all of these units will assist in meeting.
Yes.
So, although the purpose of your proof from pages 10 to 14 was to just suggest that there wasn't a need because you had all this fantastic pipeline coming forward. In fact, we agree that the opposite is true because there is a need. Even with accounting for the pipeline, there's a need for all of them. The small ones, the large B2, you need them all.
There is a need for every site, yes.
For every building within the scheme.
Yes.
Okay. So does that represent, just to be absolutely clear about that, a shift in your understanding from when you wrote the brief?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Okay. I'm just going to just give me 20 seconds, just review on the basis of that. So I just need to see what questions I need to ask you on the basis of that. Can we look together at what ICENI say is the right way of responding to the need that we agree exists? So the ICENI consider this topic at core document 14.2, which is their September 22 warehousing report.
Yes.
Now, what the purpose of this document is, just to leave we worked out the purposes now. On the first page explains that it's been commissioned by the SWHW on behalf of a number of local authorities to consider future demand scenarios for logistics and implications for the economy. That's what's happening. Yeah.
Yes.
And on page 2, it talks about the objectives as established in the study brief. So the inspector understands what they are. It's to establish the baseline warehouse stock position, to establish the logistics historic floor space, and then to forecast different scenarios and work out how to go about planning for the future sort of thing. Right. At page 71 of this study, just for the inspector's note, not much terms what it may be, but it identifies a supply position summary. There's a table 6.1, and it identifies what the supply position is. And to be absolutely clear, this was April 21, and it's for units which were above 9,000 square meters. That's strategic units, you see.
I do.
And when it comes to Northamptonshire at that time, the position was 969,634 square meters of strategic V8 space.
Yes.
Yeah. Now that's a pipeline, if you like. That's the supply. But of course, it doesn't mean on its own the needs are being met, does it? No, because you can't just work that out on the basis of looking at the pipeline. You've actually got to see what are the requirements, and is the pipeline enough in order to meet those requirements? But what does it mean? What does those sorts of figures? What do they tell us? On page 106, it's got a long story short, there's a lot of detail. Page 106, there's yeah, exactly, 106. There's a summary at the bottom that, I mean, having examined all the different scenarios, what we're told at 10.18 is the key output of future scenarios, demand against supply. The range is between a further 237 to 576 hectares of further strategic supply. That's what the conclusion is.
Yes.
Okay. Now that's all very well for strategic, because that's what this paper is primarily about. But on the next page of the document, it turns to a section called implications for other industrial uses, and that's everything else, everything that's not captured by the strategic V8 category. And it describes at 11.1 when considerations can be given of the implications of these high-level demands for logistics units on the supply side for other kinds of development, including smaller industrial uses, offices, and laboratories. 11.6. 11.5, we've already touched on that yesterday, the distinction that's made between large V8 and small V8 at the bottom of 11.5 is something we discussed yesterday. 11.6, it said that the market demand and land supply balance here highlights the importance of maintaining a healthy supply of sites for both large V8 and other commercial units, which is essential for the development of balanced local economies.
Yes.
So what they're saying, again, it's clear what they're saying, is that we definitely need lots of more large V8. We can't forget about all the other things too. And in this case, non-large V8, what they call small V8, that includes all of the V8 units proposed here.
Yes.
So it's not there's a particular importance identified to maintaining a healthy supply of the sort of sites on offer in this appeal.
Yes.
11.7 on the next page of this document. Planning authorities should therefore maintain up-to-date evidence on non-large V8 requirements to ensure a balanced approach to economic growth. And again, just to be clear, non-large V8 here means, we know this yesterday, but it's everything underneath 9,000 square meters. So we are on large V8.
Yes.
Okay. This authority does not have up-to-date evidence on its non-large V8 requirement. Does it?
It doesn't appear to, no.
11.9 talks about vacancy rates, talks about rents going up, vacancy rates low, rents rising. This indicates significant demand in the smaller industrial sector. You see,
I do.
and that's us, isn't it? I.e. sub 9,000 square meters.
Sub 9,000 square
Yes,
meters.
so that's us, so far as the V8 units go. Significant demand, one where viability is often weaker than for large units, particularly for the smallest units, meaning a greater reliance on outdated stock. You see?
Yes.
Because we're not just, I mean, we are interested obviously in the quantitative side of the supply chain, but there's a qualitative aspect to it as well, isn't there? You know, the top drawer tenants, they're going to want top drawer stock, the grade A stock. Okay, so we need to have an eye on the extent to which the stock that's coming forward is actually stock of an appropriate quality.
Yes. Okay,
we'll come back to that maybe later in the inquiry. Where the pipeline, this is 11.10. Where the pipeline and availability of all units, large V8 and everything else, has remained positive, while it has remained positive, there are no issues with crowding out non-V8 occupiers, which has largely been the case pre-pandemic.
Yes, yes.
So there's a lot of discussion in your evidence about the risk of crowding out. But at 11.10, what I see is saying is that there aren't issues with crowding out the non-B8 occupiers. That had been the case pre-pandemic.
Yes, that's what it says, yeah.
So to that degree, this point about crowding out, it's not supported by what I see me actually say.
That is the case, yes.
11.11, we're told that at 2022, the availability of logistics units are dipping. You see?
I do, yes.
Which means there is the potential to crowd out, this I'm reading from the last sentence of this paragraph, if policy measures aren't in place. You see?
Yes.
At 11.13, at the top of page 110, almost there, getting to what I've seen actually say about all of this, the evidence suggests limited crowding out of non-logistics units in the market until recently, but that is now likely to occur because of this high level of demand that they've identified, right?
Yes.
So what do we do? What do we do in response to this risk of crowding out? I've seen tell us at 11.14, there is a clear need to ensure a strong pipeline of sites for non-large V8 type commercial activities, as well to meet current and future demand. And the planning authority should get on and do that. Right?
Right, and that's where the future plans come in.
For sure, for sure. In the meantime, we are non-large V8 type commercial activities, if you like, aren't we?
Yes.
So the 5 of the 6 units, the B2 unit, I'm really focusing on the B8 units in my questions here, but obviously the B2 unit you welcome. But the B8 units are non-large B8 commercial activities.
Yes.
And when it comes to those sorts of things, I've seen this prescription in order to maintain a healthy supply, market flexibility, avoid risk of overcrowding, avoid, vacancies going too low, rents going too high, all of that. The prescription is ensure a strong pipeline to meet current and future demand.
Yes.
A clear need, quote unquote, to do that.
Yes. And it's for the future planning.
Well, no, it doesn't say that it's to look at it.
Yes.
Clearly, the future plan, whenever that comes along, will have to do that. And just to be clear, you don't have any evidence at all on the future plan, future local plan. But something that was raised in the supported its opening, and you mentioned it in your evidence in chief. You give no written evidence at all about the next version of the local plan and what that will or won't do. That's a sort of about the later party.
Well, no. We're just basing it on the up-to-date.
Sure. Okay. Anyway, but putting that to one side, it doesn't matter because what I see here telling us here is that there's a clear need to do it now to ensure this pipeline, not just to meet future demand, but to meet current demand as well. So that's demand that exists right now at the moment.
Yes, that's what it says. Yes.
So the future plan definitely has got to get on and do what it's got to do in due course, no doubt. But I'm not asking you about that. I've not provided any evidence on it at all. There's a clear need right now in the present day. Our inspectors was faced with, as the council, faced with this clear need and the responses to make sure that we've got all the sites coming through to meet it.
Yes.
Okay, and so we agree that our scheme will go towards addressing the clear need which is identified by IC.
It would.
Thank you.
The fact is that, but on the strength of this site is allocated for smaller on purpose to create that choice.
Sure, absolutely. So happy days. So we would therefore be achieving exactly the kind of thing that I've seen you say is a good thing. We need to make sure, yes, there's a large scale V8 coming forward above 9,000 square meters. There's a huge market for that, voracious demand for that. But we need to make sure we don't forget about the non-large V8, what they call small V8. And that's us.
And we shouldn't forget the small either.
That's what no, exactly. But they call small.
Rather than this kind of under the 929 square meters.
That's not what they say. No. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
I'm asking you about what they're saying.
Yes,
These are these.
Yes.
Well, I understand why you want to make that point, but I see think that small B8 is everything under 9,000 square metres is running over. And what I see is prescription is for the issues that they identify in the marketplace, is that we need to make sure that there's a strong pipeline of sites that are non-large B8, and we would assist in meeting that clear need.
Yes.
And I seem to say absolutely nothing about ensuring that there is a strong pipeline of, just get the numbers right. Thank you. B8 sites that are under 929 square metres. You're saying that, I appreciate that's what you think, but when you give that evidence to the inspector, you're not basing it on a single comma or a letter or whatever in the ICD reports, because they don't accept those distinctions of B8.
No. Well, under 9,000 would also include.
It includes everything.
Absolutely.
But you're drawing the extra distinction, not ICD.
Yes.
Okay. So, if we take it back to the employment note that you produced, this is your notice now, the employment note is part of your evidence that you produced as part of your proof. You produce this employment note and you conclude towards the end of page 2, paragraph 12. Paragraph 10 first, sorry. You tell us under the heading crowding out.
Yes.
You say that it's clear from the open permissions where the market has a choice, it tends to focus on large scale vehicles.
Which note are we on?
I'm sorry, sir. It's the 2-page employment note, which is part of Mr. Bennett's evidence. It's not.
Oh,
I was just on the heading crowding out on the second of the pages, and here you tell us that it's the paragraph 10. It's clear from the permissions that the market, where it has a choice, it tends to focus on large scale V8, right? And that is your view.
Yes.
Notwithstanding all the things that you were telling us about yesterday at the round table, that actually is your view.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, this is the crowding out point raised by ICE in the study that we've just looked at.
Yes.
We know that the prescription that ICE offer to alleviate that issue is to make sure that you're granting lots of permissions for non-strategic V8.
Yes.
Just like us. Just like the units in this scheme.
Yes. In the future plan.
Doesn't come on. I know
Well, it's to inform the future plan, isn't it?
but that's not what ICE's prescription is.
I understand.
There's a current demand and there's a current need, and their prescription is that we should be granting permissions now to meet that need.
Yes.
To ensure a strong pipeline. Right? On the future plan, you don't mention it here, it's not new proof, whatever. But it doesn't matter, because we agree that there's a need now, we agree there's a demand now, and we agree that ICE's prescription for avoiding this crowding out issue is to ensure a healthy supply right now to meet future demand, and also current demand too.
Yes.
I mean, it's sort of obvious, but I mean, you'd agree with that prescription. I mean, it's the only logical response to the problem.
Yes.
So it's not just what ICE is saying, it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
And that's 10. At 12, you say that the recent increase in demand for B8 is putting pressure on other uses. As SEMLET noted, and again, I think that is by SEMLET, that's a shortening of the report we just looked at.
Yes.
So as the report we just looked at, that's document 14.2 noted, where there are open permissions, where competition between larger scale V8 and smaller scale V8, that's particularly vulnerable. Right?
Yes.
And we know that where you're using this language of smaller scale V8, here anyway, you're referring to ICE.
That's right.
And that means that when you say smaller scale V8 here in your employment note, you mean V8 that's under 9,000 square metres.
Yes.
Those are the uses that are vulnerable.
Yes.
And so it's really important if those uses are vulnerable, we make sure that we're granting permission for them. to protect them.
Yes,
And
yes,
so that's another, benefit, if you like, associated with the non-strategic VA units that are proposed as part of this scheme.
that's right.
So you're doing exactly what ICE tell us is the right thing to do.
Yes, and that also means that the small under 929 are vulnerable as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You said it means that the small, the under 929, are vulnerable as well. All right. Do you have any, I know what the answer is, but do you have any assessment of the need for what you call small units, sub 929 square meters?
No.
So the only evidence that's before the inquiry, so far as need goes, comes from ICE, not from you.
Yes, that's right.
And that evidence identifies a very clear need for more small VA units in their terminology.
Yes.
And that means sub 9,000 square meters.
Yes.
Just to finish off the picture, to bring it up to date, I've seen you also produced the housing and economics needs assessment document we've been through once or twice already, for document 14.1. This one's only a few months old. We're told page 250. PDF 253, page 250. There's a heading at the top of the page called summary.
Yes.
And then when it does office first, and then it turns to deal with industrial halfway down the page. And we're told that industrial, on the other hand, so drawing a distinction, if you like, from the stuff it said about offices already. Industrial, on the other hand, is a very strong market. Northamptonshire and the wider area represent one of the strongest industrial and logistics markets in the country, given their proximity with the Golden Triangle, typically considered to be just west of Leicestershire, at the centre of the national motorway network. Yes. However, it might be a strong market, but at 10.59, we're told that recently delivery has failed to keep pace with demand. You see?
I do.
And again, just to be clear, given that you don't provide any evidence on demand or on need, you don't second guess this. So I would imagine you endorse it, you rely on it.
Yes, they're professionals, yes.
So it's an agreed position that a delivery, notwithstanding all that stuff about the pipeline yesterday, relevance which we will come back to in closings, the deliveries failed to keep pace with demand. And so vacancy rates are very low.
Yes.
And rents are very high. They are shooting up. They're at a 10-year high.
Yes, I've no reason to contest what they say here.
What does that mean in terms of what the requirements are for future space? Section 11, which is starts on the next page, is called employment land requirements. And I'm not going to go into lots of detail because there's pages for this, but just to cut right to the chase as to what they actually end up concluding. They reach conclusions on what the need picture is on page 263.
Yes.
So table 11.5 on page 263. And this table does take just a little bit of, what took me anyway, just a little bit of time to understand what's going on. There are 5 different columns, and each of the columns sets out a different time period, which is being covered. Do you see?
I do.
And if we look at the overall one that covers the entirety of 2021 to 2041, which is the whole sweep of time period, that's the far right hand side, you see. So if we focus on that, the far right hand side, which is where the overall numbers are set out, There's then, if you look at the rows, there's a number of, I think there's 6 different scenarios that are considered. There's Experian, baseline, incremental, and transformational, and there's Oxford Economics, baseline, incremental, and transformational. Those are 6 different scenarios. You see, they produce each time up 6 different, results.
Yeah.
When it comes to the overall picture for B8, it's anything from, let's see, the Experian baseline for B8 is 75 hectares across the next 20 years. You see,
Yes.
see what I'm at?
Sorry, say that again.
So it's the far, it's the far right hand side. Third line down is B8.
Okay. Yes.
You see, that's B8 in one scenario, is lower. In the Experian transformational scenario, which is a couple of scenarios down, the need for B8 is higher, it's 190 hectares. You see, yeah. But a number of different scenarios, they all produce their own numbers, but the overall conclusions on those numbers are 11.2029. As shown, the labour demand scenarios result in the need for up to 138.7 hectares of land. You see, so that's what's going on there, and the majority of this demand is for B8. The majority of the demand is for warehousing space.
Yes.
We can see that obviously in the tables, the way they're put together, but the truth is that regardless of which scenario, it doesn't matter. The position in this part of Northamptonshire is that there's an enormous need when you look at 5 years, 10 years, whatever. And most of it, the vast majority of it, is actually a need for B8 specifically.
Yes, that's right. That's kind of what some of the policies provide. The strategic policies do require an awful lot of B8. It's for this site to provide that flexibility, that choice, that those do not.
Yeah, I'll ask about that today, but that's fine. The 11.34, it said that taking the above into account, the baseline need for non-strategic warehouses to meet need arising locally. They're just slowing down. This is exactly what we're talking about. So we're now looking at a figure or a document that was produced just a couple of months ago that's telling us what the baseline need is for non-strategic warehouses to meet need arising locally. Yeah?
Yes.
And it's 75.6 hectares.
Yes.
And that is before, we're told, considering, that's baseline, but it doesn't consider issues around margin and replacement demand.
No.
That's a significant need.
It is.
It's a need that this scheme would contribute towards meeting.
Yes.
And you've got no evidence that considers the extent to which this need is going to be met without our scheme coming forward.
It's all that is true. I would say it's for the future plan to, as you say, this is a very kind of part of the press document. So it's for the future plan to kind of deal with this need.
To get right for future plan. So is it your position, just to understand where the future plan stuff fits into the logic of your argument to the inspector, putting it aside for a minute, you agree that there is a need at the moment for more B8 units of all sizes?
Yes, it's one of these needs where it's insatiable. It's
large ones, small ones, everything. You agree that there is this need. You agree that the need is recognised in the local plan, it's recognised in the ICD documents, it's recognised wherever you look. There's need writ large. And you agree, I imagine, would you, that if there's a need at the moment, and if the need could be met on an allocated site, that would be a good thing.
Yes, if it's policy compliant, yes.
Okay. And there'd be no reason, if it's a need now, there's evidence that supports the existence of the need now. There's a site before us now, scheme before us now, that would go towards meeting the needs. There's no reason under the sun to say, oh, well, don't do it until there's a new local plan. I mean, that doesn't make, I don't know what, is that what you're, I don't know. Is that, is that what, why is the local plan relevant?
Well, it's an adopted local plan.
No, the next local plan. You seem to be saying, and I need to clarify what you're saying. You seem to be saying that, well, it's all very well, all this stuff about need, but it's a job for the next local plan. And what I'm suggesting to you is that there's no reason at all, if there are needs that we agree exist now, and there's a scheme that exists now in order to meet those needs, we should be getting on meeting the needs now, just like the plan tells us to.
Yes, we work off, and I've always worked off adopted local plans.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, yes, there's scenarios where plans are close to adoption, yes, that we can take into account, but we're not there.
I agree.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's no dispute on that.
Good.
So it's not, so we don't worry about the next local plan, do we? We've got needs that exist right now. We've got a market that needs help right now because rents are soaring and vacancy rates are plummeting and all the rest of it. We've got loads of evidence to substantiate that. We agree that this is a scheme with units in it that are going to, each of the units is going to help to alleviate that problem. So there's no reason at all not to just get on and permit it. I mean, there's no reason to delay permitting it until whenever it comes to it from adopting its next level plan, is there?
No, a policy compliance scheme would also assist.
Would also, right, okay. Right. Finally, on this document, page 284. Ties it all together. There's reference to offices at the top of the page, which as we've seen several times, and it says is a relatively weak market. But passing over offices to the industrial market, which is about halfway down the page at 11.102.
Yes.
We are told that at 11.103, it's recommended that the baseline figure for needs is around 110 hectares. Yes, over that planned period. This equates to around 440,000 square metres of industrial floor space for smaller units, just calls like us, like all the units in this scheme, right? Yes. And is therefore excluding strategic need, as we can see from the top of the next page. At 11.104, the council will also need to address the need for strategic warehousing as well. There's another figure for that, which is actually much bigger, 417 hectares. That's at 11.104. But putting strategic warehousing aside, the message is we need 440,000 square metres of industrial floor space for smaller units.
Yes.
And that is something to which all of the B8 units in this scheme would contribute to.
Yes.
And again, to repeat the same point again to you, but in respect to this number, you've got no evidence on the extent to which the council is already meeting its needs without asking. That's right. Okay. So
just like it mentions the plan period 2021 to 2041.
Yeah. Thank you. So where does all of this take us? Where does it take us? Mr. Ward's evidence shows, and you agree with him, that there is both a need and a demand for each and every one of the units which our site offers.
Yes.
I've seen his work for the council explains that the demand that Mr. Ward has identified and that you endorse is consistent with a strategic level fast need for non-strategic B8 units of the sort that are on offer here.
Yes.
And you offer no evidence at all, written evidence or oral evidence, that compares whatever you think the pipeline is to what the needs are.
No, I don't.
That's all about need. Thank you. Right. Almost there. Just a couple of questions on one more aspect of the policy, and then a couple of questions on the planning balance, and that's it. So the other aspect of the policy I wanted to ask you about was the policy, I mean, policy 36. Policy 36 refers to, in the 5th line, a comprehensive master plan to be agreed by the local planning authority. Yes. Just to try and slightly scratch under the surface of what is actually envisaged here by this policy. A comprehensive master plan to be agreed by the local planning authority. It doesn't tell us, does it, that the agreement has to come in any particular form. It doesn't. So it doesn't require, for example, some policies might do, adopted SPD or something like that. It doesn't even require a formal approval, say, by members of a particular committee meeting or whatever. It just says agreement, however, in whatever form that might be. Yes. There's nothing, to be clear, in the policy to stop the master plan being agreed, whatever that means, through the DM process.
No sense to stop that.
You agree that, notwithstanding that there's reference to a comprehensive master plan in this policy, we all agree, I think, that this is a policy which permits the sort of phased approach that's being adopted in this case.
It doesn't prevent it, so yes.
It doesn't prevent it, so it does permit it. So the fact that we've got a scheme coming forward in phases rather than, if you like, all at once or whatever, is not. It doesn't lead to any problems so far as this policy is concerned.
No conflict.
There's no requirement for the entirety of the master planned area to be developed all at once, or through a single planning application.
No.
Just on that.
Oh, sorry.
Last bit of that question.
Yes.
Just repeat that.
Sorry, there were sort of two separate questions I mangled together, but let me just break them down. The first one was, there's no requirement for all of the master plan development to be undertaken at once.
No.
And there's no requirement for the entirety of the site to be developed through a single planning application. Sorry. If there are multiple applications for phases like there are here, the policy does not prescribe which parts of the site should be developed first.
That's correct.
If there are multiple applications coming forward in phases, as is the position here, it will follow that not all of the policy's requirements from A to I are capable of being picked up at the beginning.
Yes, that's right.
And so it can't be the fact that a particular phase doesn't tick every single part of A to I on its own, that's not a conflict. Problem is it taken together, the master plan for the site that doesn't tick A to I. You see?
Yes.
So there's no conflict with this policy so far as this appeal scheme is concerned. Just looking at the appeal scheme for a moment, if the inspector looks at the appeal scheme on its own, phase 1, and says, well, I can see that the appeal scheme ticks A, crosses B, ticks C, crosses whatever. The fact that the appeal scheme doesn't meet every prescription of A to I on its own isn't a conflict. The conflict would be if the inspector looks at the entirety of the master plan for the whole site and says, that this just doesn't.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and on that topic, your view of the master plan that's proposed, the wider master plan, is in your evidence. It starts from page 14. And you do note on page 15 at 3.46, on page 15, that the policy doesn't preclude the allocation coming forward in phases, which is why I thought we would put one as we are, to just confirm we're agreed on, if you like, the principle. But then you say it does require a comprehensive master plan, and indeed that's what it says. And then at 3.47, you say, using the comprehensive master plan requirements of policy 36, the submission fails. And it fails for the following reason. And then you set out what the reason is.
Yes.
And the reason is to do with the, it's to do with crossing the main road.
That's an element of it. It's kind of, it's the connectivity directly southwest.
So
Yes.
that's what I meant. It's not about that.
Yes.
And so to that degree, it's something we touched on earlier on in the round table, someone will ask you about it. But if in the end the inspector reaches over or whether or not what we proposed as part of our scheme is acceptable or not, and he's heard evidence about what the pedestrian routes are, and I'm not going to go back over that, done it. But let's assume for a moment that he doesn't agree with any of our transport evidence on all of this, and he thinks no, that's just not good enough to follow the pedestrian routes that we've illustrated in our evidence. It doesn't matter so long as the wider master plan is capable of delivering the things that policy 36 requires. This is only phase 1. So as far as the policy goes, so long as our bit does what it can do on the bits plan that we're covering, we accord with the relevant parts of policy 36. That's the way it works.
Yeah, the fear is that this would be a standalone development without phase 2.
Yeah.
By itself, it's this conflict.
But that's the point. There isn't any. There's not conflict because we've agreed that the right way that you look at this sort of policy is you say, right, each phase has got to deliver those parts of the wider master plan that it's capable of delivering. It doesn't make any sense to criticise phase 1, say, or whatever, but for failing to deliver things that this part of land can't do.
Yes, I mean, if this has come forward as an outline, for instance, for the whole allocation mechanisms to deal with that this is a standalone part of development.
Yeah, which you've accepted is not a problem in principle.
In principle, with mechanisms to provide this particular connectivity.
All right, I'm leaving off on the connectivity stuff, but anyway, that's what you don't like about the master plan. We've had evidence on it at the round table, and that's none of that. Ultimately, however, you give us a planning balance exercise at page 18 of your evidence. That's the last thing I wanted to ask you about. Your planning balance exercise on pages 18 and 19. You consider harm, you consider benefit, and you want to take the planning balance. Yeah?
Yes.
So under the harm side, you say that there's a point about landscape in the last sentence of 4.1, where you're talking
yes.
council's landscape case. There's a point about the southern connections, as it were.
Yes.
You say that there's harm that flows from the conflict with the policy, i.e., it's got to be B1 and B2 focused.
Yes.
Yeah. You also say that there is a failure to meet need. That's the third line down.
localised need.
Yeah, need for small scale BA.
Yes.
This is part of your analysis of the harms.
Yes.
So do we need to rethink that? I mean, because that's not your case, is it? You in the way you've done your planning balance here, you put failure to meet need as one of your harms. Yeah.
Yes.
But in fact, we've agreed at some considerable length this morning that our scheme's contribution towards meeting needs for what I see called small B8, non-strategic B8, is a good thing, and is exactly what I've seen you telling us we should do.
Localised need to deliver the flexibility and choice.
So you're almost on, dare I say, sort of auto repeat with this phrase about flexibility and choice, but indeed, try and engage with the question,
Yes.
right? We're almost there.
Yes.
In the way that you've done your planning balance, you've suggested that a failure to meet need is a harm associated with the scheme. Is that correct?
Yes.
In fact, we've agreed today, and you've accepted that your reflections have changed since you wrote the proof, so it's perfectly fine to get there in the end, even if you weren't there when you wrote the proof. But in fact, we agree there is a need for our scheme, for all of the units, and that meeting that need is a good thing.
I can accept that there's a need for the proposals and also the small B8. There's a need.
There's a need, and we're meeting it. And that means that it's not a harm. It can't possibly be a harm that there's a need that's been identified, there's evidence that's substantiated, that's very important, that's very clear. You're meeting it equals harm. That's nonsense. It equals benefit, doesn't it?
Yes, it does have benefits.
Okay. So in fact, so far as need goes, at the moment it sits in the harm side of your planning balance, but for the inspector, he needs to take need from the harm bit, he needs to put it into the benefit bit of his balance, because it's not a harm, it's a benefit.
Well, the need is related to, again, I don't want to repeat myself, and I don't think you do either. There is the choice.
The need is the choice. These phrases mean nothing. Please, the need is the choice. I don't know what that means. We've agreed there's a need.
Yes.
We've agreed our scheme meets the need.
Yes.
We've agreed that that is exactly what we're supposed to be doing so far as the plan is, is concerned, and I see it concerned. Meeting needs that exist. I mean, that's what the planning system is for. It's a benefit associated with the scheme, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, so that's all I'm asking you, really. But flexibility and choice, absolutely. All in favour of that as well. But so to the extent that the inspector is interested in need, if he puts need into his planning balance, it's obviously not a harm, it's a benefit, right?
Yes.
So, okay, so that's that. Is it an important benefit?
To meet need, yes.
It's a benefit that should attract some significant weight to the balance.
Yes.
It's not one that you've recognised in your.
Which far it says provision of jobs, associated economic activity,
Okay. Okay. So when you wrote all of that, you had in mind that would be because of meeting needs for B8 units.
well, yeah, that's associated with economic activity, yes.
Okay. So meeting need for B8 goes on to that side of the scales. And it's given significant weight to your analysis.
Yes, that's right, yes.
Does that change your overall planning balance?
No, I don't think it does.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Bennett. Those were all my questions.
I had an exchange with Mr. Simon yesterday on the legal submission I'll be making and given that that legal submission has been accepted, I have no information. I can ask if everyone's cold and whether they would like heatings on. Would you like one?
I've just put these now. Yes.
Okay.
The rumbling stays on for 20 minutes. It clicks on.
Anyhow, I'll show it. Lecture. I've only one clarification after all those questions. And it relates to this bit in the policy. It's small. Where do I find in the policy? Policies have to be read on their face. It tells me where it says small scale be it, but that reference to small also refers to the proportion of be it within the overall allocation. Where are the words in that policy?
I would say it's the word development rather than it use the word units. Units.
That's it. This is just one bit, and it's in your plan balance. We agreed, Mr. Simon said we would attach significant weight to the need side of the equation. And we have these other elements in the equation, but we don't actually attribute any level of weight. The emphasis of a set of invisible balances. And but if there is at the end of the assessment conflict with the policy, balance benefits against the harm. So when you talk about the landscape harm, what level of weight would you attach to that? We've got significant in terms of the need aspect, so we go down to limited, moderate, significant, very significant. So on landscape, what would you suggest that the negative weight?
Significant.
And the absence of this scheme proposing the southern connections.
Significant.
And to the policy committee. Overall.
Overall, it would be substantial.
Substantial seems significant.
Slightly higher than significant.
Sorry?
So it's slightly higher than significant, or
Well, then
towards the top
I give
end.
you scale limited, moderate, significant, very significant.
Okay, very significant. Basically.
That's significant. Positive with to the
That's right.
and also significant with the provision of these two.
Yes.
So, thank you very much.
So, I mean, it's still quite early and we do consent, just maybe take a few minutes to rearrange the chairs and then press.
We're pressing on.
We are pressing on to our first, well, not our first one, the first one is on this topic. So, and then you'll be getting person to do it today. Yes, that's the plan. So, Mr. Harvey, the chief, if you like, take 5-10 minutes now, or then just do it all at once.
We should give the chief and then let him.
No, I think we're going to do it in full today. So yeah,
I think the time is sort of half an hour for this.
Yeah.
Maximum an hour for explanation, but probably much less than that.
So it should be clear this morning. So
So if we take 15 minutes.
yes, sir, sure.
inquiries resumed. So, is there any other documents or will we refer to Mr. Bennett if you want to add to what we're looking at?
I don't think so. So thank you very much. Also, Mr. Harvey's group and NPCs.
Policy and process, please.
Thank you very much. And good morning, Mr. Harvey. Do you turn your microphone on? So you tell us in your proof of evidence, Mr. Harvey, in section 1, that you are Gilbert Harvey. You explain your academic qualifications as you're a member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors since 1994, and you're employed with Edison's. You've been based in their Kettering office and you've been working from Kettering for over 33 years. Working in North Northamptonshire, particularly letting and selling commercial property and development lands. That's your background. And you were first involved in the marketing of the Kettering Business Park, which is the area that you refer to being adjacent to the appeal site. You were involved in marketing that from 2009, and you've been involved as an agent, joint agent, marketing that area since then, alongside Avis. Yeah, that's correct. Right, so that's who you are. You provided a proof of evidence. Could you explain the nature of your instructions in relation to this particular scheme? So you've been engaged for some time on land in the area, but what's been your involvement here specifically, so far as the appeal area is concerned?
Effectively, we're working with joint agents at some got to look at the market demand and need for a site like this, and working with the architects on getting a scheme which one fitted the physical constraints of the site, but also give a balanced scheme sizes that we reflected market demand.
Unpick that a little bit, unpack that a bit more for us. When you say a balance of sizes to reflect demand, what is it that you were talking? What are you talking about? What was the nature of your input on that topic?
Well, effectively, we're nature of our business. We deal with inquiries every day, just general inquiries in the local market. We speak to other agents. We interrogate the website. There are websites which are professional websites like the Agent Society, which you can go on, which both agents put on their properties onto the market, and also agents effectively they put quite out. And between us, we look at the general demand for units, which our brief was to be for units below the 9,300 square metre mark. And so we were looking at the demand for that area, which so fit constraint for the site, we thought would fit the market, and give a range of sizes which would satisfy a range of demand.
In your proof, there's a section 3, which is on the 4th page. Section 3 is called competition in the area. Some appendices that build this topic as to other things that are on the market or in this part of Northamptonshire. Could I ask you a few things just before I ask you to tell us what the nature of the competition is in the area for the units going forward, just to sort of define our terms, if you like. What area is it that you're talking about when you're considering this issue of competition of other sites? What is the relevant market area from your perspective?
The medium market towards the market of the media market is the area of Kettering and Corby that we see is the principal area that we look at for demand.
Why is that?
One of the reasons is geographically in the area, Kettering and Corby align quite closely to each other in terms of connectivity, geography. Further south, we've got one of the areas that tend to gravitate to forest further towards Northampton and historically. So when we're looking at the demand principle, we're looking at the ones immediately around Kettering, Corby, principally, because that's where we see most competition is. That nodal point on the A14.
So, looking as you have done at the Kettering and Corby market area, you've identified, we'll go to it at the moment, you've identified sites on the market which offer grade A units. Yes. Could you explain to the inspector what grade A unit is? Could you explain what it is for those who are watching who might not know, but also why has that been the nature of your focus when you're examining competition in the market for units coming forward here? What's the relevance of it and significance of it being grade A?
Grade A stock is becoming increasingly important throughout the country, just this particular site. Grade A stock is stock which is we classify sort of new stock or still about 5 years old. The issues with regard to ESG, credentials, and EPC. ESG is environmental, social, governance, which are a lot of stock on. Energy performance certificates, EPCs for buildings is increasingly important for a lot of companies, especially the corporations, and it's filtering down to low levels. They have strict criteria in terms of their carbon neutral credentials, and it's very difficult for them to have those credentials and then occupy all the buildings. So grade A stock is increasingly important. The EPC criteria is getting ever tighter. 2027 and getting to 2030. So people are needing to participate in those regulations before they take occupation. Investors also quite important for them to future-proof themselves against the issues of EPCs. So therefore, grade A stock is quite important. We also have a bit of a legacy in the area. Corby, for example, I think that was one of the first had the issues of the steel closure, and the Development Corporation and the Commission of Newtowns built a lot of stock in the 70s and 80s, and that stock is now getting towards being obsolete. So there are a lot of companies that are starting to look and need to seriously put more on stock and fit the criteria of EPC levels and ESG criteria.
So we're looking in the Kettering Corby area, we're looking at grade A stock coming forward. You have a couple of appendices that consider the nature of what's on the market. The first, your appendix 1, it relates to what I think we're now calling larger or strategic stock, which is 100,000 square foot plus.
Yeah, apologies for just having the square feet on there, so the square meters.
No, that's fine. But in each one, you explain how big so obviously we're principally concerned that this will deal with non-strategic BA, but is there anything that you draw out of this work that you've done so far as the strategic picture goes?
Well, in terms of the strategic, there's quite a lot of it that's been in the pipeline that's available or can be available, and the main reason is with regard to those sites. There is not a great deal of opportunity for non-strategic units to be on those sites for other people to follow it's their crowded scenario really. So
you just explain what you mean by that? I think we know what you mean by that. You are the best level.
Yeah, in terms of the sites, they've got planning for large units, or they're available or can be available. The sites themselves, if you are in terms of the basic economics, the market is very strong for strategic B8, and it's more cost effective to provide it. So in terms of the motivations of the owners of those sites, they're going to pursue the best possible option.
So this table, this Appendix 1 table, relates to the strategic side of the market. Your Appendix 2 table relates to the non-strategic side of the market. This is, you've given us units between 20,000 and up to 9,999 square feet. What's on the market in respect of class grade A non-strategic warehouse and industrial units at the moment?
Well, this table is the one which we did in the target area, which shows these three options which fit the grade A criteria.
Yes.
Of those, since we've done that report, in all three cases, they're either just available or coming available within the next quarter. Of that, Saxon 58 is now formally under offer. That's the second one. That's the second one, which is due to be practically completed in January, February, I'm told. So it's not yet ready, but they've got that under offer in those hands.
The second one's gone, it's under offer.
Yeah. The third one, Evo 60, kind of might say the approach line. Sorry.
So the second one's under offer.
Yeah.
Saxon 58. Then you mentioned the third one. That's Evo 60.
Evo 60.
What's the story there?
I'm told there's strong interest in that by the agents. The clients of mine have made an approach on that site as well. Although I think they're favouring stronger covenants or national covenants.
So that's the third one. Interest TBD as to who gets that one.
Yes.
And anything else on the first one?
The first one literally is just practically completed. I believe they're interested. I don't think it's really interesting.
So far as units that fit the bill in that they are grade A, they're local, and they're non-strategic, in the marketplace, as far as you're aware, that the number that are out there, which are not currently already under offer, is 2.
Yes, at the moment.
What does that suggest to you? I mean, what does that tell us about the state of the market? What can we infer from that about the level of demand out there for properties that are this sort?
Well, even since this report, things are always moving. There's been recently the unfortunate demise of a local company, which potentially could cause a spike in property availability. We took a unit of 33,000 square feet, 2,600 square meters. We put that on the market 2 weeks ago. It went under offer on Friday to a local company, and we're pursuing legals next week on it. Another unit on Telford Way, which is within the size criteria, also came available at the same time. That's also going today, as I understand. Sorry, there's a unit came available on Telford Way, but has also come under offer. It's been under offer today, as I understand.
So what does all of this activity tell us about the state of the market? How do you assess it?
Well, it's extremely strong. In my 33 years, stock levels have never been so low. The quality stock, which is increasingly important in this size sector, it is extremely and in all instances where it exists, it is let at the moment, or as it's available, strong interest in it.
That's your section 3 of your evidence, which is to do with local competition. Section 4 of your evidence turns to the topic of inquiries and also need as well. And section 4 is supported by a table, a schedule of inquiries, which is your appendix 3. Where you set out the nature of some of the inquiries and who they are and what they're after, etc. So, could you just summarise for the inspector what it is that you think that he needs to take away on the topic of these inquiries? Why have you brought them to his attention?
As I sort of alluded in my report there, this is just a bit of a snapshot. Sorry. As I alluded in my report, this is a bit of a snapshot on inquiries that could be of interest to the site, or inquiries that we've actually had active engagement with. All these companies have had details on this site put to them. We've not really done much with them recently, but of those inquiries, we're just trying to demonstrate a balance of sizes and requirements that effectively would happily look at this site. We could show a lot more general inquiries for this site from general circulars that we get greater sort of space, both locally, regionally, and nationally.
What does the nature of these inquiries tell us? I mean, what can we infer? I don't know, from the list that you've given us, the sorts of uses in terms of B1, B2, B8 uses, the nature of the users that they be after, or is that, how clear is that to you?
Yeah, in terms of the inquiries that are on that sheet, there are, in terms of we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those inquiries are predominantly B8, and then there's also B2 uses in there as well.
So, what does the nature of these inquiries tell you about the extent of demand that would be likely that they'd be likely to be, if you like, in the event that this scheme was consented and the units come forward?
Well, when we were initially giving the scheme a big push, we had so one of those inquiries was into legals. We had heads of terms out on another one of the properties, and we had significant engagement with one of the local companies, which we brought drawing proposals to at a very early stage. So from that sort of engagement, when really you're only dealing with a scheme in principle, it is quite rare. I mean, one of the issues, the thing with this site is, I don't know of a site which actively promotes these sizes and wants to do these sizes.
When you say these sizes, are you talking about non-scrap V8s or?
Absolutely. The predominant availability of grade A stock is being promoted on strategic levels. There's not a scheme that I'm aware of that would want to promote and actively seek to offer this from day one, and give the range of sizes that we've indicated on the bill.
So you're not aware of another scheme out there that's positively promoting the sort of things that we're promoting here?
That's correct.
In the end, Mr. Ward, who spoke yesterday, do you hear his evidence? Mr. Ward spoke, and also Mr. Bennett as well spoke this morning on the topic of need as well. Did you hear what we hear his evidence as well? So there's a clear position from both of them on the part of the local planning authority that there is both a need for and a demand for all of the units that are proposed in this scheme. That's to say the B2 unit, the larger unit, and then the non-strategic B8 units, all 5 of them. That's their position. To what extent, are you with them on that? What's your analysis of that question?
Well, my opinion is there's undoubted need and a requirement for a scheme of this size and nature. It's not readily accommodated or promoted elsewhere. Most of the schemes which I've mentioned in the report are strategic options only. And in terms of the need and demand, I agree with the statements made yesterday.
So those are all the questions. Thank you very much.
Good morning. You'll need Mr. Bolton's proof, your proof, a copy of the master plan, and the employment land agreed table from yesterday, please.
Can you repeat that?
Sorry, your proof, Mr. Bolton's proof, a copy of the master plan, and the employment land supply table from yesterday. The pipeline table, the round table table. Just before we get started, can I just ask you, you were in your table 3, I think you said there were 6B2. I was trying to keep up with you, but so I might have missed it. Can you just tell us, if we can go down this, can you just tell us which uses each of them are in? So if you start with Keelings and just run down.
Yes, in terms of prominent V8 uses there. Keelings, V8.
It's V8. Keelings is V8.
Tile mountain.
V8, yeah.
Rumble Foods on the smaller side would be V8.
On the smaller side would be V8.
Yeah.
And the larger size would be?
Well, I think in terms of commenting inside, I think they would be, if they're going to do a full relocation, that probably would exceed the size of the full relocation.
Well, and the full relocation would be B2 with it?
It would be probably in excess of the size that we could
Yeah,
provide.
no, but it would be B2 with it.
Well, it would include that, but it'd be over the size we could provide for this site.
And Simrise, of course, is B2, I think. You jumped over Simrise there, but that's B2.
I've got, yeah, sorry, I could just highlight it.
No, I want for all of them, I want to know what category they're in, what use class they're in.
Yeah, Simrise would be B2. Rumble Foods, B8. Dexa, direct, B8. Hollywood Lighting, B8 and B2. Miracle Design and Play, they would be, that would be B8.
Well, you say B2, B8 in the sectors.
Yeah, it's B2, B8 on Miracle Design. Two computers, it is B8.
You say B1, B8 in the text.
Yeah. Brightons.
Well, sorry, can you be accurate? Because I mean, you just said it's B8. Is it B1, B8 as you put in the text, or is it B8?
Well, it's in terms of B1, there would have an office content within that B8.
So it's B8 with B1 element. Yeah. Okay.
Total computers, B8. Writons. Writons, B8.
Yeah.
Forcible healthcare, B8. Alimas, B2.
Thank you. Okay. Right, you're the local agent for the estate on Kettering Business Park and the policy 36 allocation.
Yes.
And you're obviously here to give evidence on demand and unmet need for the scale of units on offer. And I think I'd say you're providing a local agent's perspective of demand and unmet need rather than a sort of detailed employment need plan study. You're an agent's perspective rather than the study's perspectives, which is from Mr. Bolton, I think.
I'm here just to demonstrate the coal face in terms
of. And you worked with national agents, Alison Young, to advise on the needs, you say in paragraph 3.01 and 3.02, the needs based on competition and alternatives, and the type and size of buildings that would be in demand. That's your paragraph 4.01. And the mix and scale of the proposed buildings we see in the appeal scheme is a result of that consideration, is it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so I want to look at the evolution of the mix of uses on P1, phase 1. So at the outset, when you were considering the competition and the alternatives and what type and size of buildings to provide, were you originally aware of Simrise's interest in a particular major relocation here?
When we were looking at the Simrise came onto the scene during the various processes that we were going through. So we've been looking at this for a long time.
Okay. But before this scheme was formulated, or indeed before the 2000 scheme was formulated, you were aware that Simrise was interested in moving here?
In terms of timelines, we were looking at Simrise for the front part of the site. So in terms of the timelines, we were looking for Simrise became part of the evolution of the process.
Yeah, before the first application, wasn't it? The first B2 building was designed for Simrise, and this plot 1 building is designed for Simrise, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So if I understood it right, the plot 1 B2 building has been designed. It's a bespoke, specific building designed for Simrise, and as you tell us in the proof, they're no longer heads of terms, I think, in that respect. What's the current position with Simrise in terms of coming here?
But at the moment, we can't do anything because we can't provide the certainty.
Yeah, but you had heads of terms before with them when you had no certainty. So what is the stage of play? The state of play of Simrise when it comes to this B2 building?
But at the moment, it's not being pursued at the moment.
Not to us.
Are they actively looking somewhere else?
I believe they still have a requirement, but they are were able to obviously pursue this site at this precise moment.
But anyway, the output of your advice, including Simrise and their interest in the market, was this scheme that has just one large-scale B2 building, or larger scale, I should say, and all the rest is for medium-sized B8, non-strategic B8, as you call it.
Yeah, units below threshold.
And so, and you identified that there's other B2 demand from your schedule. I would need to go through it, but there's been a conscious decision to go to meet the non-strategic B8 size rather than more large-scale B2 units.
That's a policy which is I was just here to say is the demand for B8 for a scheme like that, and that was my remit to our remit to order that.
So the question you were asked is there demand for B8? No. Question I'm asking is when you gave your advice as to the appropriate mix of uses here and what the demand is for, you proceed on the basis of only demand for one B2 unit of this sort of scale.
No, in terms of our advice, we were looking at in terms of was the one unit which we were looking at to provide B2 use, but we were. I'm not here to. I was here to provide, or we provided advice based on the sizes for a B8 scheme, which the policy of that was not part of my remit.
You're not really answering my question. The question is, you've put forward a scheme of 5-1. That's a conscious choice of a mix of uses on this appeal side. And was it based on your assessment that there was only a need for one large-scale B2 use?
No, that our advice was based on the fact that the B8 market was extremely strong, and we felt that it was not being provided elsewhere, and it would be an opportunity to take advantage of that market.
So there is a wider B2 need for large-scale buildings. You've just chosen not to meet it. My awareness is there's plenty of B2 potentially later on the site, but the market that we're pursuing was as a percentage of that we feel. My advice was to give the demand for the scheme that would fit on that site and the sizes that would work. Yeah, and you consciously chose to go for the B8 non-strategic scale rather than the needs for B2 for which sites allocated.
The actual conscious decision to go for B8 was not my decision.
Yeah, okay.
My decision was to go for demand for B8, and was a demand for B8, and there is, and we advise on the scale of the scheme on that basis.
I'll come to phase 2 in a moment. You're positively telling the inquiry that there's a market demand and need for non-strategic scale B2.
So
You're telling the inspector that there is, from your Schedule 3, for example, that whilst you've chosen to go for B8, you accept that there's a market need and demand for this sort of scale of B2.
there is a demand for both B2 and B8.
Right, okay. Thank you very much. And so by putting B8 here, you're displacing that to which it was allocated, then B2.
That's not something in my
Okay, I'll come to about this spot. Do I understand from your evidence that the need for medium scale B8 is or isn't limited to the 5 units here? I think you're saying there's much greater need for medium scale B8.
The demand for grade A property is across the board.
Of which side of medium scale is what we're calling a medium scale.
Well, I'm not going to go into definitions.
No.
You guys have been doing that today. But my remit was to comment on properties. We were given advice that we couldn't give. We could have said the best thing to do would put a big unit on a site. That's what most other people are doing.
That's what you'd like to have been allowed to do that. You're just not allowed to do it on the policy.
So therefore, we were giving advice on where did we think the likely demand for a scheme below the strategic level would be, and something that would reflect the market and something which would give a balance to the inquiries that we could find. The balance that we've had is we've got individual sizes, so we haven't got a. I heard people saying that you take a site, divide it by 5, and that gives you lots of equal units. We were there to give a balance of units to reflect market and choice at the end of the day.
I'm sure your position is that over the whole of the market area for which you're talking about, there's a demand or an unmet need for more than you're providing on phase 1, more non-strategic scale B8 than you're providing on phase 1.
I would say that the demand would be easily fulfilled further than the site would be.
Easily fulfilled further than that. Good. Okay. And just to pick up another point, there's no issue at all on viability of delivery of medium scale B8 in Kettering and Northampton, is there? There's no possible issue on viability of delivery of medium scale B8 in Northamptonshire given the market conditions.
When you say viability, I'm sorry, that's a question.
Not can't afford to build it.
Well, the issue you've got is that the Recruit are there's a scheme there which they're promoting, which is promoting actively promoting a full scheme of buildings, which is not being promoted actively elsewhere.
So I'm not asking that question. The question is, yeah, obviously your case is that the medium scale V8 are viable on this site. You're not suggesting, given the market you talked about, that delivery of medium scale V8s isn't anything other than highly viable elsewhere in Northamptonshire.
The issue is that on a lot of the competing sites, that they don't have constraints on the sizes that can be provided. If you look at a lot of the competition.
Will you answer my question, please?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know the market will always go for the highest profits. That's not the question. The question is the viability of delivery of medium scale V8s. And it must follow, as night follows day, that there's no issue with viability of delivery of medium scale V8s in Northamptonshire.
I still think the viability. The issue of the viability goes down to risk commercial aspects to it. People have choice to offer potentially a scheme that would be small, but in terms of the likelihood of that and who is actually preventing that right now, I'm unaware of.
Okay, now moving on to phase 2, please. You told us about the exercise that you were engaged in advising the client on the makeup of the phase 1 application. Presumably you've done a similar exercise that it's informed the master plan for phase 2, have you?
So far, our advice is just merely on the ongoing marketing and potential of the something.
Well, hang on, so not phase 2.
Firstly, my remit is not phase 2.
So what market demand and need analysis underpinned the master plan for phase 2 then, please?
My remit is in terms of ongoing marketing of the next phase that says phase.
Yeah, but you're their agent, or their local agent. I mean, who's advised them on the market? If it's not you, who has, and who can I ask questions about the market demand and need analysis underpinning the market master plan for phase 2?
It's not asking me.
And you present no evidence on the master plan phase 2 at all in terms of demand, need, supply, and so on. That's right.
That's correct.
And you haven't been instructed on it or on its formulation.
That's correct.
And I take it you therefore haven't undertaken any testing of it in the market.
That's correct.
Or sought expressions of interest.
That's correct. On the basis that we're looking at deliverability of the market in a time frame that I can give some advice.
And there's no assessment anywhere of any demand of the scale of demand for the units that's been set out for the master plan phase 2.
That's not my reading.
And so it's simply a unevidenced drawing on a plan. Is it?
That's a question for somebody else.
Well, what else is it? You're the agent. What else is it? It's not being informed by market needs and analysis. What's it based on?
You're going to have to ask him that he's not responsible.
I note that the agent who's done all the market and need analysis for phase 1 can't give any evidence on phase 2. Do you know about the detail of the master plan for phase 2?
I'm aware of the phase 2, yeah, in terms of marketing, it's marketing markets in the near future.
You've been instructed to market it in the near future, so?
No, in terms of my instructions are to comment on what is deliverable in a time frame which is more immediate.
Okay. Can I then ask you, please, in terms of the demand or the logic of phase two at least, and just so I can, as the local agent who knows about the market and is telling us about the buoyant market and so on, I want to understand what the underpinning logic is. You know that phase two shows 13 plots delivering 47,000 metres squared of B1, B2.
Yeah, I'm aware of this.
Yeah, well, can you tell Mr. Bolton's page 43, please? You can see that the floor space is for each plot. And then if you put that alongside the master plan, you can see that for all but 2 of the plots, the total floor space is split between a number of buildings. Now, page 43 and the master plan next to each other. You just get I also have the master plan document.
Reference.
CD 2.1.3, I think. Oh, sorry, 216 point. Oh, I do apologise for my documents are out.
This is the design.
Yeah, it's a plan that shows the master plan. That's all
Yes, yeah.
Well, it's in a number of places, so I've got different references. Okay. And so we see there that I referenced Mr. Bolton's page 43 and the master plan. You can see that all of the buildings set out in the master plan are of a significantly smaller scale than the buildings on the appeal side. I've been through that already, so that's fine. With the largest single buildings being on plot 13 and 19, I think, with then a range of, and it's obviously flexible, it's not fixed or anything, but we can see what's envisaged with a wide range of other scale units, 4B1, B2, down from that scale of units 13 and 19. Yeah. Sorry?
Yes.
Yeah, and we can see the plot sizes, the overall plot sizes down the the third column of page 43. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And those plot sizes would be amply able to deliver the sort of non-strategic B8 that you're providing on the appeal side. Yeah, and amply able to deliver the size. What do you say, please, as to the demand for what the master plan shows for phase 2, the market demand for the sort of scale of B1, B2 units shown on the master plan for phase 2?
That's not why I'm here for this. My remit was to comment on the appeal side.
You're the local expert, and you're here to help the inquiry and answer my questions. What do you say? What do you say as to demand for what phase 2 of the master plan shows?
But in terms of generally, if you're looking at a phase scheme, you'd be looking at the phasing of a total development and it's the deliverability of it, which you're not answering this question.
Is there a demand? Is it the same level of demand, the same level of market as it is for the medium-sized units. That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, is there, the question, the next question is going to be, are you aware of very substantial demand for this sort of scale of B1, B2 in this location?
There would be a demand, but in terms of generally across the board, I mean, everybody's shown that there's a strong market for both the B8 in particular.
I think you were saying for both.
But there is also demand for B2 as well, it's been demonstrated elsewhere. So in isolation, B8 and B2 is not totally different. I think the demand for B8 at the moment is stronger. The demand for B8 demonstrated is there. The actual product for that demand is not there. And that's where I'm really, my reason I here was to come here today was largely to comment on the appeals.
Yeah. I didn't hear the last sentence, I'm sorry, there must be some difficulty in my ears or something, but did you say that the demand isn't there yet? Did you say? I didn't hear it. No, I don't. So the product, the product is not there, sorry. Okay. So if I understood that answer correctly, if a scheme was to come forward across the appeal site and faced with a master plan for a B1, B2 led development, there would be demand for it.
There would be demand for also. The strongest demand is for B8.
Yes, but there would be demand for it. You're not saying there wouldn't be a demand for that for which is site development.
There would be demand for all sectors. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, just take a position where it's demonstrated in re-examination or by Mr. Bolton or whatever that somehow that view of the demand that you've just given cold-face evidence about isn't correct. Just say that. The alternative real-world view of phase 2. I mean, if there's demand for phase 2, why isn't an application being put in for phase 2?
I mean, he's not here to give evidence about other applications in phase 2.
I'm sorry, this witness has said that he's advised on the market demand and need and the mix of uses for phase 2. Has he told his client that there's a need and demand for B1, B2 uses on phase 2?
He's already answered that question.
Well, Mr. Simons, I didn't interrupt you when you asked my witness the same question about 25 times yesterday, so please.
We advise our client in terms of where the strongest demand is for the scheme.
Only for the scheme. Okay, so it's true, isn't it, from what you're saying, that if the market is left to its own devices, it will try to deliver medium non-strategic B8 units.
The strongest market is the non-strategic B8.
And if it is left to its own devices, that is what it will try to deliver.
At the moment, that's where the strongest market is, that's where we're trying that.
And if you were advising your client on phase 2, you would be saying now to max out non-strategic B8 on it, wouldn't you?
In terms of the remit, it's that we can only be guided by what the client is allowed to do. Because the planning side is not my forte.
Yeah. But in market demand, I'm asking about market demand. If you were advising your client on phase 2 now as to market demand and a need, you would be saying max out B8 and non-strategic B8 on phase 2 too, wouldn't you?
We would certainly look to see if we can satisfy the market, but also take a balanced view at the time.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, with just very short questions on the evidence of B8 demand from your evidence, please. Paragraph 4.01 I found a little bit difficult to follow, so I'm sorry if I'm being slow. It's a Friday afternoon or Friday in the afternoon after quite a long week, but I just couldn't understand what the sentence means. Identified and generated inquiries, both general and specific. Can I put to you 3 propositions and then tell me if I've missed something, okay? I think you looked at databases of major companies' requirements that you referred to on the agent's website and so on to see general demands. Is that right? And then you also had regard to your local understanding of local general demands, not site-specific demands. Is that right?
Yes.
And then I think you also sought to generate a site-specific interest or inquiries, which is when you talk about generated specific inquiries. Is that what generated specific inquiries means? Putting it out there to the markets.
Well, one specific requirement, which was in the list of in my schedule, was items who specifically asked about that site, liked that site. The reason they liked that site was because there's no municipal municipal around it. So they actually liked that site specifically because it was from V8 and didn't want to be surrounded by so
They specifically don't want to be near B2 on the site that's allocated predominantly for B2. Okay. Let me just keep going though. In terms of the specific inquiries, I think, please tell me if I'm wrong, but apart from Simrise, which is for B2, there's only two site-specific inquiries that you've referred to in your evidence: Tile Mountain and Reed items. Yeah.
that a license.
Yeah. And Tile Mountain, you say, I got a little bit confused as to what position was on heads of terms on Tile Mountain, because in your text at 4.03, you say no heads of terms have been agreed, but in your table, you say, at least I think you say, for Tile Mountain's heads of terms had been agreed.
That had been finalised.
Okay, I guess that's just wrong. The heads of terms had not been agreed, or it should say on table 3, should it, for Tile Mountain?
There'll be in the super, but they weren't finalised.
Yeah, so it had not been agreed then. Okay, so right, and when was their original expression of interest, and when was this work on heads of terms, please?
Good question.
For Tile Mountain, sorry, for Tile Mountain, when was their expression of interest, and oh yes, and when was the heads of terms under discussion?
My joint agent dealt with that particular inquiry. I could not tell you off the top of my head.
Okay. In the immediate past, in the last few months?
No, that was it would
2020.
It would have been done when we were trying to finalise the master plan, which had been just trying to think where that would be.
Well, if you say in the text, I think you can say, oh no, you don't say date for that, no. Okay, but anyway, you can't go on precise dates. In terms of items, please, that's a demand for 3,252. So that would have been for plot 6, would it have been that one?
We're looking at that master plan, and that would have been a unit which would have potentially fit the criteria. Or they were looking at one, what could we provide them? We sent plans to them, some detailed plans to them to say that this is what we could do.
And there's been no response or development since then?
I speak to them regularly. They are actively watching this inquiry to see if it's something.
Okay, actively.
So they're very much alive.
And then after you look at the two that have been actively referred to in paragraph 4.0, the specifics in 4.03 and 4.04, I think you then look at the general inquiries and in 4.05 you say that could be suitable for the appeals side. So this is just a general database search, is it, and a general requirement search for the big companies.
We've looked at the whole market. So we've looked at both the general inquiries that are circulars, and you get circulars that will say they're looking for England. You can go from one extreme, where you get the national inquiries, they'll look at this as a postcode that would be included in their search area, and then you get the very specific inquiries where you get very local to the likes of writings. So the whole mix, I mean, I've recently done a letting in Muslim where a big multinational company had a wide search, and they chose that particular town, but because it suited them and it was available.
I'm picking up on the word could in your paragraph 4.05. You say it could be suitable for them, but you haven't got any evidence that it would be suitable for them or that they're interested.
It's difficult to, when you're doing an inquiry, they like certainty. So when we had those inquiries, we were saying this is something that may be coming onto the market, and therefore they said, yes, we could be interested if you can deliver.
Okay, I'm also you could be interested if you can. I understand. Okay, and just by reference to the final set of questions, I think, is just on the pipeline. Given the demand, one would expect, wouldn't one, sites with planning permission to come forward to meet the needs?
The sites that have come forward so far are meeting the needs for the larger strategic units, because they're the easy ones to make.
You answer my question, please. If there's strong demand, you would expect sites with planning permission for non-strategic V8. I'll add that bit to help you along. If there's such strong demand as you referred to, you would expect sites with planning permission for non-strategic V8 to come forward to meet the needs?
If there are sites that were capable of delivering units of that size and the will to do it, then you would do it. But I'm not aware of those sites that are willing to do that.
Well, you must be aware of the sites that have got planning permission for medium scale, for non-strategic scale V8 within the catchment area, surely. They haven't been implemented yet. You must be aware of those.
There are sites that there are no sites that I'm aware of that are being promoted at the moment.
Right, so can you take up the table then, just so I can understand what the status is of these sites from the local agent with 33 years expertise here in this area, dealing with warehousing. Site 23, please, of the table. Sorry, I didn't mean that one. Sorry, I meant 35. We had a discussion about this yesterday in the round table, and it's got a outline permission for a strategic scale one, but also 2 small V8s and 1 V8 V2 of 4,000. You can see in the right hand column there. What's happening there? Presumably that's about to come forward, is it, if the market's so strong?
I'm not aware of that being promoted.
Even though it's got outline planning permission in July last year, you're not aware of it?
I'm aware of the site, but I'm not aware of that's been made available.
Are there any other planning permissions on that site for another use? Are there any other planning permissions on that site for other uses?
How does Spence know that? He's not
the agent
for the planning background to this site, not the agent for this site.
He's the agent for the area who says he knows about the market and the demand and the supply in the area. So that's why I'm
Something an encyclopedic knowledge of every planning.
It's a fair question, Mr. Simon.
You can't help me on that. No, okay. 39. Ex-site of Brookside Garage, Wellingborough. Planning Commission in November 22. Not yet started, 5,746. Ready to go. Do you know anything about that? Page, sorry, row 39, page 11.
Again, where it's not, I'm not aware that's been closed.
Okay, and site 63, please, on page 18. Under construction, and as we know, I don't think, please tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it's the one that you've included in your schedule 2. So I don't think it's one of the ones in your schedule 2, but please tell me if I'm wrong on that. So 63. If it's the first one, then I'll accept the report. I'm not sure it is the first one.
Yes, it is the first.
Oh, I see, because the developer has said here, that the applicant said to be granted property rather than Letfield, that's why I was interested.
Yeah, Letfield bought the property.
Oh, okay, so it is the first one, okay. Thank you very much indeed for your time. No.
No questions, thank you very much, Mr. Harrison. That's as far as we can go today. We'll start with Ms. Curry. If the council can make sure that the Teams link is set up, hasn't been set up so far. Pass that on.
There's 2 things I need to deal with. Sorry. One is that we've been told we have to take all our stuff out of it. And the other is I'll deal with teams outside. We'll make sure the teams are set up for Tuesday morning at the first session.
Ms. Curry.
Ms. Curry. Yeah, okay. We'll liaise outside. Then we've got the question about Tuesday is obviously the Rule 6 party. Wednesday, I'm just going to review timeline for the next week. It's just sensible to review it at the end of each week just to see where we're going and whether we're going to accelerate now. At the moment, it's anticipated.
I would have got to there. I would have got there.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, don't worry. I like slapping.
All I can say is that at the moment, I don't know what the evidence in chief of Mr. Walton and Mr. James are going to say, but I envisage that my cross-examination both will be substantially shorter than
Detail on that. I mean, for example, for Mr. Bolton, that was originally for the time, so I was thinking we want to go over some of the detail that we've now, the inspectors already seen, very painful for all. So I think for both of them, if we set up for examination in chief for both Messrs. Bolton and James, something more of the order of say half an hour or so, high level examination in chief, and half an hour each sort of thing.
And then I would imagine my cross-examination for Mr. Walton would be 2 hours, and for Mr. James probably one and a half, which means that the reason I raise this is because it looks like we would get through all those both those witnesses on Wednesday.
I suppose there is the caveat of this distinction.
Well, sir, I've written a cross-examination, Mr. James. and also with Mr. Bolton. The Bolton one is short. The Mr. James one at the moment is longer. But lots of those questions will be crossed out if they've already been answered. Just say they will be by Mr. Porter.
So there's a fair chance that if we went, say, 9:30 to 5, had a full day, that we might actually get through all of the evidence on Wednesday.
And my only question then was going to be, this is really to save my weekend for spend it all writing the closing speech, but will we still stick to Thursday roundtable and 106 conditions and not get to closings until Friday? I don't mind, but
I don't anticipate anything that, I've looked at the conditions, I've yet to look at the section 106. I've only, at the moment, only one or two queries in relation to conditions, which you will get by email on Monday, so you're aware of them. It's very simple. I think the only issue was for you to consider is what arose out of the ecology roundtable in relation to the nature of that condition.
Exactly, yeah.
And the nature of
We're doing
where
that.
it relates to the section 106 agreement.
We're very much doing that and we'll update.
then rather raise questions to what Thursday is going to be for, or whether we put the closings into Thursday too.
If we started at 9:30 on the Thursday,
Yes,
I don't envisage conditions taking more than 90 minutes
yes,
maximum. That would allow me to go and do the site visit.
Yes, sir. Thursday after, the rest of
on
Thursday.
the rest of
Thursday
Thursday,
lights and everything, yeah.
and give you the opportunity to refine your closing submissions if you want.
a euphemistic use of refiner. Yes, we'll take it. So, no, absolutely, that's fine by us. That suits you.
Which would come back on the Friday morning and do the closing,
Which would take
3, 4,
which would take us maybe slightly into Friday afternoon,
It might be early afternoon by the time we're done. But absolutely, yes, sir, that works for us, certainly. Yeah.
that work for you?
Thank you.
That work for you, Mr. Stinch?
Yes, sir.
Right. That is something else. We'll adjourn to resume on Tuesday morning at 10. Start with this query to follow with the local entity. And then the remainder of your. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.
Sorry. Yeah.